else, Mesquite. Most of the comments have been made tonight that need to be. The only couple things I wanted to say is, first of all, thanks to the city council and to Barbara for getting this going, because we as individuals would never have gotten it accomplished if it hadn't been for the city council. Secondly, I'm sure the board does not remember, but I was in your audience a year ago when you did the first increase. Never was acknowledged, never could make any comment, but that's water under the bridge. My concern basically is I think an awful lot of this could have been taken care of with open communication, which Carl alluded to when he said transparency, okay? Second of all, or last of all, we do live in Mesquite, and I heard, I can't document this, but it's my understanding that when we got our other board member, every other meeting would be held in Mesquite, okay? I think we as citizens of Mesquite are somewhat lacking because never again will members of the OPD run unopposed. I think those advertisements must have been in the fine print back under legal documents. So basically the last question I have is, I would love to be on a board, whether I attended the meeting or not, I would be paid $500 plus expenses. So that's ludicrous, okay?
And 2 vacations a year.
I wish you the best. My last personal comment is, these rates will be affecting all of us in trickle down, as you well know. First of all, the city has to take care of their increase from you, then it goes right on down. I am on a committee for the sports center, the Oasis Sports Center, and I got our rates today. We have paid you $10,000, $339 for the last 6 months, and if I add 4.5 to that, right off the top, that's another $450 somewhat enough. So I do hope you'll take these things into consideration. Last comment, I think your expense accounts for all of your travel are really outlandish, so you might want to look at that. I'm not sure you need to stay at a hotel for $450 a month. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Kathy Busby. I'm a citizen here. Early on in the conversation, you made a comment about being an agreement with Pulte for Sun City and such, and then as you were talking about all these substations that are being built, my question is, because of the expectation of how large that community was going to be, how much of that have we put out money for that's not going to be realized, and is Pulte any kind of agreement to reimburse us so us citizens don't have to pay for that?
Yeah, Pulte was obligated to pay their share of the cost. Costs indicated here were Overton Power's share of expanding those facilities.
And so now that there's not going to be as many houses, that means that's trickling to us as citizens that live outside of Sun City, or even Sun City residents now.
Pulte has met their obligation to pay their share of the development of those facilities.
Okay, but how much is not going to be built out, so you're not going to have revenue from those homes that aren't going to be built out?
That is definitely a difficulty that's come about because those homes are not being built. We're not going to receive revenue from them.
Do you have any idea what that amount of money is?
I don't.
Well, I think that would be a good thing to know so that we have an idea of how much of our increase is a result of that entering into that type of an agreement, building to that level when the market was going down.
I can address that to some extent. Our not strictly Pulte, but overall, our residential customer loads dropped by 10%. We lost 10%. While we still had meters, that meter that we would have been collecting $150 or $200 a month in revenue on, the porch light was on and we were collecting $35. So we lost 10% of our residential loads, either through people moving or foreclosures on their homes. We've seen a real turnaround in the foreclosure market, not seeing near as many of those as we had. But that has been a problem, the loss of load and residential load. So, although the one agency that is still growing and connecting meters is Pulte Homes. And whether or not they have those homes sold or not, our understanding is this last piece they've developed, about half the homes have been sold that they've developed in this last phase.
I think it would be good public information to know how much of those lost revenue is attributed to putting in those substations out there that we now have to pay for. And just as a side note, the company I work for, we're gonna have a $10,000 a year increase. And that's not easy to swallow. It's like, what other item do I have to cut back on now to be able to keep my lights on? Thank you.
I'm Doug Reese, citizen of Mesquite. We built a shopping center where the Beals department store is on about 15 acres. And we wrote a check for almost $300,000 in impact fees. I'd like to know the amount of impact fees that you collected from roughly those good times, 2005, 2010. I see numbers of what you guys spent, but I know all of our tenants pay impact fees, and we're talking rate hikes, and there's an awful lot of money in impact fees. And when new businesses come into our town, oftentimes they're set back with the amount of electrical impact fees that they're paying on top of easement fees, et cetera, et cetera. So that's my question to you.
The impact fees, the district sets those based on whatever it costs to serve a new load that customer pays. We could build that into long-term debt. In doing that, you risk the problem of that growth going away or not coming in. I think the phone company could address that. They have some obligations contractually or from the regulators to build infrastructure, and if the growth doesn't come, they're still obligated to those costs. The power district has required anyone who comes in to pay their fair share of costs to come onto the system. Those impact fees then go to do system improvements as well. And we can identify that number. I obviously don't have it at the tip of my tongue, but it's available. Do we have any new unheard item yet? Anything that has?
Moapa, do you have any association with the new power facility going to Moapa?
As Nevada Power's, no, we do not. If that's, I'll kind of sum up here, and then if there's any additional comments, we'll take just a brief few comments. But some of the things I see that we need to address, obviously, are administrative costs. We'll be discussing those with the board. We encourage you to attend the meeting and hear that discussion. The pancaking of rates. If we increase the rate to the water district, they have to increase the cost of water to you. I think that's been one of the positive things to come out of these discussions. We want to avoid that. We think we have a realistic and workable plan to hold their rates and not cause that pancaking for both the city and the municipal water district. So we will be presenting that to the board, and I believe they will ratify it and build that rate or allow that rate for them. So hopefully that will avoid any cost increases to you through your water or city programs. The cost-cutting measures will be ongoing, and we certainly take a look at some of those and the justification of some of those costs. And one thing I do want to address that I think is we've seen some comments about, and I think it's a poor comment to suggest that the youth programs that Overton Power conducts be restricted or eliminated. We provide scholarships. We have we participate in a youth energy seminar program where youth are taught leadership skills, and I think Overton has an obligation to provide for future leaders of this community and future leaders of our state. And so we continue to spend those monies, are built into the budget, and we continue to spend those. And I don't think that's a place I would look for cuts, but that's my opinion. So, but with that, we will be addressing some of these issues. And I have to say, I think it's been useful to the power district to go through this process. There tends to be a complacency on the part of staff as well as the community to become involved in the affairs of Overton Power, because we go for such long periods of time with no event taking place. And so we are committed to try to be better communicators of what's going on and providing more information that's readily available to the citizens. And we hope we're able to accomplish that. And if we don't, I would hope you would bring it to our attention and offer some constructive criticism on how to do that. So now with that, I'll conclude my remarks. If there's any other to come from the floor.
I just have a real quick clarification on the monthly board meetings. Do you provide the check registers and credit card statements to each and every board member so they can review that information in advance and vote on the consent agenda containing that information?
Yes.
Okay. And just to be clear, you're not going to make the decision on this rate increase. It's each and every member of the board of trustees that
Yes.
votes on this. Thank you.
7 members of the board will make that decision. With that, we thank you all for coming.